What's going on, everybody? Day 2, ACC Kickoff in Charlotte. David is there. There's a lot to get into with this one because Miami spoke today. Mario Cristobal, as well as 3 players who were in attendance, Tyler Van Dyke, Jahfari Harvey, as well as Will Mallory. David, what were your initial thoughts? There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to get into, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big news, I don't know if it was necessarily big news to us on the beat, but I guess that it's official that the turnover chain is dead now. I guess it was the first time maybe that Mario Cristobal actually spoke about it. That it's just not a part of his culture and what he wants to do at Miami. So that was that. Tyler, I think, just seems like a more confident guy. He's got that experience from last season behind him, and he's kind of entering this season as the man. Jahfari Harvey, I think he's looking to prove himself this year. I think he admitted to me that he didn't impact games as much as he would have liked on a consistent basis last season. And he's looking to change that. And Will Mallory's just excited to put together a total season. He said he's feeling good from his off-season labrum surgery on his left shoulder. And he says, he previously had that surgery on his right shoulder. And he says, now I have 2 good shoulders. So hopefully I can, keep it together and have a productive year this year. So lots to talk about. We can get into anything you want, but overall, I think there's definitely a buzz around Miami now, which is cool to see, which makes sense after they added Mario Cristobal as their head coach.
You touched on injuries, and that's where I want to start with. And Zion Nelson, it didn't seem like it was talked about. It came on social media. Offensive line coach Alex Mirabal posted a picture with all of the offensive line, and there was Zion in a heavy knee leg brace. And so that caused a lot of question marks as what's going on with Zion. He was standing there, but it was a big brace. And today was the first time since we've seen that photo circulate, and Mario talked about it. And I'll let you go ahead because you were able to get his response. Obviously, the quotes are out there, and definitely I'm going to put links below for you guys in the comments section on the YouTube channel so you guys can see all of the content that we put together in written form. But David, what was your reaction to the way coach said? I know what he said, but maybe your thoughts on how he said it.
So it is, we're learning about Mario Cristobal and how he wants to word things. And the way he did word it is interesting. He basically said the way he wanted to word it was the only guy who's definitely going to be out at the start of fall camp is Ryan Rodriguez. And he did say there will be some guys that are out there, and he made it, if you read between the lines, he made it sound like there will be some guys out there that are, practicing maybe in a non-contact jersey, but they're still practicing, I guess. He wouldn't go into specifics as to who that would be. So will that be Zion Nelson? We'll find out, I guess, on the first day of fall camp. But I did straight up ask him, is Zion Nelson going to be good to go for fall camp? And he said, yeah, he'll be good to go. So I saw the same photo you did. We'll see. I mean, that looked like a serious leg brace, but Mario Cristobal says that he's going to be, basically what he's implying, at some point during fall camp, he's going to be full go. So we just got to take him at his word for now.
Yeah, it's good because we're still learning the way coach addresses things. And I think that's the big thing that we kind of learned with this and the way we kind of dealt with injuries in the spring, but it's much different. Even now, obviously from the spring, but even in July, it's different as it will be as the season gets going and gets closer. So we will see how things, certainly he's the guy to monitor. Also, you mentioned fall camp. It's official. August 5th is the start date there. Season starts September 3rd. So that's great to get that out there as well. Other injuries, David, I want you to address some of this other stuff. Some guys we touched on. We've talked about them in the off season. We've actually been able to see some of the guys. I know Don Chaney Jr., just kind of hearing him. I remember seeing him at a camp recently and put a clip of him kind of doing a little quick workout with the running backs. But touch on some of these other guys, and then we'll get into some actual comments. by some intriguing
Yeah.
comments that stood out, but kind of just to update a little bit on some injuries and kind of where guys stand in addition to Zion
So
already talked about.
he talked specifically about Don Chaney, the running back, who 4-star guy coming out, close to being a top 100 guy coming out of high school. He said, he's moving well. He praised him for improving his conditioning level over the last 4 to 5 weeks or so, and he says we got to continue pushing him in that way because we think he's a very talented player, and we know he will respond to that because his dad is a Dade County coach, and he knows what type of work is entailed to be a successful player at this level. So he's encouraged about Don Chaney. He mentioned John Campbell. He said, John Campbell, if they really wanted to push it, he could have probably participated in the spring game. But they decided to, ease into it in the spring and kind of hold him back so he didn't aggravate anything from the knee injury he sustained in the off season prior to last season. But he had high praise for John. He said he's a great player. I asked him, does he view him more as a tackle or guard? And he said both. So I think he'll get a look. I think he's going to factor into the starting offensive line competition. I don't know if he's going to win a job, but I would expect him to get some first team looks. I'm trying to think, is there anyone else I'm forgetting that he did touch on?
Well, Wesley Bassett, freshman, people are excited about him, and it was obviously what happened with him. Any update with him? And I think we kind of run on after that.
So that one's kind of twofold because he did miss the spring game, and he said, that was just like a minor little soft tissue injury in terms of why he missed the spring game. And then in the summer, of course, he was involved in a serious car accident. Sounds like he's been full go though, pretty much all summer long. So no lingering effects from that, it sounds like, for Wesley. So overall, I mean, judging by what Mario Cristobal told us, the team is entering fall camp in relatively good health.
Yeah, and that sounds good. And again, we'll see exactly what it looks like as it begins in August. Tyler Van Dyke spoke today. His comments, there were some interesting ones. He also was on the radio. There were some things there that I want to address. And particularly, let's just get right in. Let's stay on Tyler, his thoughts on the offense and things like that. But, one of the things that stood out to me was he was really excited about freshman running back Trevante Citizen. And he's a guy I've spoken highly about based on people that have seen him and kind of relayed that information, and they like him. And we will see how he fits in with this group because they're returning 4 other guys or 3 guys and Henry Parrish, obviously the transfer. But it's going to be interesting to see if Trevante can make an impact, what kind of role. And Tyler just came out and really said he says he can see him getting early playing time. So, it's good to hear about a freshman because it takes a while typically for a freshman to impress an upperclassman, but that's certainly encouraging news coming from a starting quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. And, not only Trevante, I think honestly, everyone's excited about that running back room in general. I think we forget just how banged up that group was last year. They really were down to just Jalen Knighton, who's really not, towards the end of the season, who's really not, ideally, he's not a running back that's going to carry the load like that. So I think they go 3-4 deep this year. And I think the run system is also going to get more out of that group. Tyler also talked about how he was framed. I mean, Tyler, like he doesn't really sugarcoat anything. And he said like, we're going to be doing more pulling guards, pulling tackles this season. He's like, last year we just did inside zone all the time and it didn't really work. And we had to throw the ball 40 times and that's not great. So he's excited about playing with more of a balanced attack this year and what that will mean for the running game.
It certainly is interesting because obviously as a quarterback, you're thinking this is a guy that wants to throw it. But look, Tyler, the way he talks today, the way he has always talked to us, I mean, winning is really important to him. He's really focused on that. And honestly, we can dissect what's the most important, but certainly balance is key for an offense. And he knows they only won 7 games last year. So, he knows Miami's got for them to be good, and also it's a point of emphasis, not just the run game, but for having this balanced attack. And certainly it looks like that's what they're going to have. I do think that they have the running backs to be more productive than they've been. I think sometimes you kind of wonder if they really are going to live up to the expectations of their recruiting ranks. But I think there's ability. You touched on Jalen Knighton. We've seen it in flashes. Certainly when he gets 30 carries a game like he did before, things kind of trailed off after that. And he's been a guy that kind of struggles consistently to get 4 yards a carry per game. But I think the ability is there, another year older. And I think that really stands out to me across the board, not just at running back, but a lot of different positions. We've touched on Harvey a little bit, and you touched on some of the things that he had to say, veering off course a little bit, but he's a guy coming back for another year. So maybe he'll put it together and have one of the years that we've been expecting out of him, Will Mallory as well. But certainly the running game is important, and it's great that Tyler understands that. David, I wonder if you caught his comments about the receivers, looking for a guy. Pretty much said, he knows Xavier is reliable, and then after that, he feels like somebody's got to step up, or multiple guys have to step up.
He said, so in a breakout session too, he was asked like who, you targeted Charleston Rambo. I think the number was like 125 times, which is a ton, right? And they were asking like, who's going to step up and kind of replace Charleston Rambo as that guy on the outside. And he did say, look, I do think Keyshawn Smith can do it. But he also said like he has to prove it. Like someone has to show up during fall camp and prove that they can be that guy, which I respect. Like Tyler's not a guy that's going to blow smoke. He does say Xavier Restrepo is going to be a secure. He calls him a security blanket, which I think is apt because that's what he's going to be. He's going to be a guy that probably leads them in receptions. But yeah, someone's got to step up on the outside. He does have faith that someone will do it. He's not ready to name or proclaim anyone as the next guy. They got to go prove it.
Yeah, and Will Mallory coming back certainly I think is going to be an important part. And I think there's high expectations. Again, I don't know how you felt, David, with Will. For me, I was more surprised that he didn't put up a good year. A good statistical year from start to finish. I think that it's still in him, even though he struggled at times. I think there's more to be had out of him, more production, more consistent production. I still think the yards after catch is still there, and we'll see if he can put it all together, but I think certainly he can. Yeah. And even if he's not, I like what Elijah Arroyo is going to bring to the table in year 2. I think he can also increase his production. So I think that position is going to be good for Tyler Van Dyke. I think it really talking about it more well-rounded between, the passing attack and the running game that they want to do. I think that goes into this either short passes or kind of medium passes to the tight end. And I think that's what you're looking at for Miami, really balanced across the board, not just on throwing, passing, but also being able to go short, medium, not just throw deep to the receivers.
We saw it in the spring when Will was healthy for those first 2 weeks or so. He was having dominant performances in those little 11 on 11 periods that we could watch. So this offense is going to feature the tight ends, and Will today, when I was talking with him, he brought it up himself that he felt like he was pressing a little too much at times last year. And, I asked him like, are you referring to like the Michigan State game with the costly drop and stuff? And he's like, yeah, it was that game. He said like, quite frankly, it was a lot of games at the start of the season. I was just pressing too much. And once I just settled in and just kind of let the plays come, the season started going better for me. So I feel like he understands the approach he needs to take going into this season now. And I do think he's going to have a big year. There's no reason why he can't. And I agree with you and Elijah too. I think Elijah's very, very good. And I don't know how much Jaleel Skinner we will see this year, but I think he's a freak.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at, Will Mallory's game log, his last 6 games, he had 3 receptions at least in every game, scored 4 touchdowns in those final 6 games. So it almost was a little overlooked at times because of how it started for him. So certainly, right. Again, and he's talking about, like you said, he knows he needs to put together a full season more consistent performance from game to game, week to week. And actually, we've seen this even during the game. Sometimes catch early and, not till late or whatever it might be. So just more consistency, but I do think the ability is there. You touched on Harvey on the defensive side. Was there any takeaways today, David, with the defense, whether it's Harvey? We're talking a lot about the offense. Offensive line was discussed, obviously, with Cristobal. Anything defensively that you kind of picked up on?
It's interesting because I think it's hard to talk about the defense because there's so many new transfers and there was a lot of guys out in the spring because of injury. So, Jahfari said that he likes the system Kevin Steele runs, from a defensive line perspective. It's going to be sound up front. The defensive linemen are still going to get vertical upfield in a hurry. So they're not going to necessarily lose that aspect in the Kevin Steele era. But, I asked Mario about these defensive line transfers that came in during the summer. And he said, yeah, I mean, they're big explosive bodies. But beyond that, I really don't want to comment on them because I haven't seen them yet in pads. And, I don't want to blow smoke and act like there's something till I know what they are. So I think that's the case at a lot of spots on defense. You have Daryl Porter at corner. Quite frankly, Tyreek Stevenson didn't play in the spring. Cam Kitchens didn't play in the spring. They added Caleb Johnson at linebacker this offseason as a transfer. So, I think overall the feeling is the depth is better. But I do feel like this fall camp is going to be really about competition and kind of defining roles. It's interesting to me because there really was a lot of guys out in the spring in general, but a lot of guys I feel like on defense are going to be new this fall compared to the spring.
There's a couple other defensive guys that stand out to me that I'm definitely excited to see once fall camp start in that first week. And we will get into a lot of preview stuff, but Akeem Messidor out of West Virginia, defensive line transfer, just seeing him up close and personal at these camps throughout the summer, but again, not in pads. I'm very curious to see how he does. And also a guy that was out there, but Outblades Jr., I think there's more to be had out of him. I think him coming back, getting his feet wet in the spring, I think he has a chance. I really do. I think he could be a really reliable, productive corner. I think he's sometimes forgotten as well. So those are two guys I'll be paying attention to very closely in the fall camp as they perform. But definitely the names that you mentioned, there's a bunch more that we can certainly pay attention to. Let's wrap this thing up. Any final words that you want to mention before we get out of here?
It continues to feel real, if that makes sense. Mario's commanding the room. A ton of media are there to talk to Mario because he's a legitimate head coach, right? We know this by now, right? His big theme is the U is back to work, and he's all about results, which I think after the last 15, 16, 17 years, I think we need to be here for that, right? We don't need to be here. I think his line was, we're not going to be about a chain. We're not going to be about tweeting. We're not going to be about hashtags. We're not going to be about t-shirts. We're going to be about results. And so, media too was asking him, do you feel like this team is good enough to win the Coastal? A fair preseason question. And he's just like, I don't really want to predict anything because, we'll let our play do our talking. And while there is a cliche element to that, I think it's genuine and real. So it just feels like, I think when we were hired and he was putting together a staff, I think the line you and I both were using a lot was, it just feels like an adult's in the room. It feels like Miami's program is being led by adults, proven winners. And I think the players feel it too. If you read between the lines on their comments, they know it's different. They know it's real now. And I'm ready to see what this year one looks like. It's going to be bumpy. I mean, it's year one, but I do think we're going to see that the trajectory is totally different now with Mario Cristobal in charge.
Yeah, no doubt Mario Cristobal is a varsity coach. David, I thank you for joining me here. We'll wrap this up. More coverage, more content will be on the website and the channel. Definitely want to appreciate everybody for watching and commenting. It's only around the corner now. It is real. It is coming up. So definitely want to thank everybody. Thank you, David, for stopping by and talking.
Thank you.